Can you hear me? I'm talking to you. Well, I am talking to you. Apologies for that, especially to Jason Morantz. But let's take a look at this essay. You know, sometimes in academic writing, we sacrifice what's most important, and that being our own way of communicating, our own style of writing in this situation. And we opt for a kind of robot like way of expressing ourselves. This paper is really a far cry from that because it incorporates the principles of argumentation, reasoning, being respectful of opposition viewpoints, responding to those viewpoints at the same time. It's very creatively done. So that kind of synthesis is absolutely something that we want to preserve. You've got your point of view, you've got your way of expressing yourself, and that can find its way into writing that need not be stiff and formal and artificial. Shouldn't be. So I'm just going to point out the creativity of the approach, the title, the introduction, Little Red Riding Hood, myths and legends about wolves that lead us into the topic, and also the fact that this is not one-sided. It's not just Ella's opinion and here, take it or leave it. It's not sort of a therapy situation where she's just going to indulge in emotional arguments in order to express those and leave it at that, carefully considering arguments on both sides and coming across in a very balanced way. That gains credibility, sometimes referred to as ethos, because it isn't one-sided. And of course, your They Say, I Say book does a wonderful job of getting you involved in being aware that the audience is not necessarily simply going to accept our point of view at face value and say, oh, well, great, because you said it, it's true. The audience will be skeptical. It is like a jury in a sense that is undecided. The audience is not necessarily opposed to your viewpoint or hostile, but certainly not going to accept it without good reasons, without powerful evidence, and without gaining the audience's trust. So all of which we can do by digging into the opposition arguments and especially responding to some of the toughest arguments. But notice how this is stitched together so powerfully, not just chunks and bits of research that is not even digested, but rather a unified whole that is connected by transitions and the student writer's own interventions, especially in comments like this. Another issue is more subtle. See, that's a student's point of view. It has not been eliminated from the essay, but it doesn't state, I believe, in my opinion, I really feel. Oh my gosh, get rid of those forever in writing because it makes you look narrow. It makes you look like you are somehow pleading with us to accept your point of view. Not so. We want a mature voice in this, which will stand you in good stead, whether you're arguing as I did for a personal situation last week when I wrote a short letter to Toyota Corporation about my headlights. I was being charged repeatedly by the local dealership for replacing headlights that should have reverted back to warranty. Corporation agreed with me, long story short. But again, that's using argumentation and evidence to advocate for ourselves. Type of writing, type of expression we do, probably the highest percentage of our lives, over 90%, I would say. I mean, I have no verification for that. Okay, so notice the use of transitions in bridging the points, and notice especially the way in which, in a very reasoned way, the author does take a position, does take a stand, but doesn't overplay that stand. Simply analyzes the opposition arguments. But let's get something straight. Argument is not necessarily cold and bare bones and skeletal. It is based on our convictions, but we are displaying those very powerful capabilities of our human minds to sift and weigh and evaluate opposition arguments and come across with our own point of view in the midst of those many arguments. So you're still taking control. Again, the use of the transitions, right? It gives critics their say and does not ignore those opposition arguments, doesn't treat the ranchers, for example, as somehow villainous. We're going to treat them as if they were absolutely at fault here. Doesn't treat those who would present programs on behalf of protecting the wolves in, let's say, maybe an extreme way, as somehow lunatics, and use name calling and straw man argument. Straw man argument is a very weak argument on the part of the opposition that's very easy to knock over, and bully for me makes me feel good. So I'm going to commend this paper to you. Spend maybe some time with it. I'll be giving you other student written samples, but I thought it was well worth taking a look at this paper and looking at the reasoning, looking at the wording. You can find any number of spots where the student does a very capable job of managing the essay and doesn't, again, resort to, for example, use of the first person, the I, me, mine. It doesn't really use the second person, the you point of view, even if it's unstated, which is really not as mature in style as what we're looking for. So yeah, I'm looking for quality, but I know you have it in you. I know you can produce it. Notice how carefully it's documented. Notice it doesn't contain huge chunks of research material, paragraphs on it, and then one little old parenthetical. Rather, a variety of use of sources, and all of which is well integrated into this paper. Well, enough said. Maybe too much, but I wanted to help you out as best I could.